is Julio Perdón Mancaral, and I'm going to talk about the characters and comparison between Animal Farm and Soviet Union. Let's start.
Old Mayor. Old Mayor is the wise and respected boy who first plants the idea of rebellion in the animal minds. He gives a powerful speech that speaks of animal equality and dreams of a society free from human oppression. His ideas become the foundation of animalism, which later shapes the animals' revolutions. Even though he dies before the rebellion begins, his influence remains strong through the story. He is seen as the father of the movement, though his vision is ultimately distorted by those who come after him. Old symbolizes Old represent Vladimir Lenin, the leader of Bolshevik revolution in Russia. Lenin inspired the Russian people with his ideas about classless society and the end of exploitation by the ruling class. Just like Olmeyer, Lenin died before seeing the full outcome of the revolution that he began. After his death, his ideas were used and manipulated by others who wanted power. Orwell shows how Lenin's visions, like Old Myers, was eventually distorted by those who followed. Through Old connection to Lenin, Orwell highlights how revolutionary ideas can be twisted over time. While Old truly believed in justice and equality, his teachings are later corrupted by Napoleon for control. This reflects how Lenin's original communist ideals were changed under Stalin's rule. Orwell, Orwell suggests that the death of a visionary leader often leaves a dangerous power vacuum. Old fate shows the risks of trusting that future leaders will stay true to the original cause. Napoleon. Napoleon is one of the leader picks after Thanos overthrow Mr. Jones. At first, he works alongside Snowball, but he later drives him out and takes complete control. As the new leader, Napoleon becomes increasingly authoritarian, using fear, violence, and lies to rule. He changed the rules of animalism to benefit himself and justifies every action through Square's propaganda. Over time, he became more like a human tyrant than the liberator for the animals hoped for. Napoleon clearly represents Joseph Stalin, the dictator who ruled the Soviet Union after Lenin's death. Stalin eliminated his rivals, including Leon Trotsky, just like Napoleon chased Snowball away. He used secret police propaganda and purged to hold power and silence opposition. Stalin promised equality, but instead created a system where he had absolute control. Orwell draws this direct parallel to warn about the dangers of unchecked political power. Through Napoleon, Orwell showed how a leader can be betrayed the very revolution that they helped lead. Napoleon goes from a revolutionary hero to a ruthless tyrant. He slowly takes away the rights and freedoms of the animals while pretending to act in their interests. Orwell used his character to secretize how leaders like Stalin corrupted communists and replaced it with dictatorship. In the end, Napoleon becomes indistinguishable from the humans he once claimed to oppose. Snowball is an intelligent, energetic pig who truly believes in the revolution goals. He wants to educate the animals and improve their lives by building a windmill and creating a better future. He debates and plans with a great passion and hopes to spread animalism to other farms. However, his leadership threatens Napoleon, who sees him as a rival. Eventually, Napoleon uses force to drive Snowball off the farm. Snowball represents Leon Trotsky, a key figure in the Russian Revolution who fought for modernization and global revolution. Like Snowball, Trotsky believed in spreading communist ideas beyond Russia. He was known for being brilliant and idealistic, but Stalin saw him as a threat and had him exiled. exiled. Later, Stalin ordered his murder, just like Napoleon erases a noble from history. Orwell used their characters to show how power struggles destroy even the most dedicated revolutionaries. Through Snowball, Orwell represents the tragedy of idealism being overpowered by ambition. Snowball genuinely wants to help animals and works tirelessly for progress, but his vision is lost because he doesn't have a relentless Napoleon does. The lies told about him after his exile show how easily the truth can be rewritten. His character reminds us that being right or noble is not enough to survive in a corrupt system. Squealer. Squealer is a small persuasive pig who acts as a Napoleon spokesperson and mouthpiece. He uses complicated language and emotional arguments to convince the animals that everything Napoleon does is for their own good. Whenever something goes wrong, Squealer twists the truth to protect Napoleon's images. He often used fear, especially of Mr. John's return, to silence doubts. Through him, the pigs are able to manipulate reality and maintain complete control over the animal beliefs. Squealer represents the Soviet propaganda machine, particularly the state-controlled press and Ministry of Information. Under Stalin, propaganda was used to shape public opinion and rewrite history in the regime's favor. Lies were repeated until they became as accepted as a true, just as scholars repeat false claims until the animals believe them. Stalin used newspapers, posters, films, and speech to glorify his leadership and demonize his enemies. Orwell created Square to show how language and information can be powerful tools of oppression. Squealer's character reveals the dangers of misinformation and the importance of questioning authority. The animals are too trusting or too afraid to challenge his words, which leads to their downfall. He takes advantage of their ignorance and fear to make them accept injustice and even cruelty. Orwell warns that when people don't think critically or demand truth, they are easy to manipulate. Squealer is not a liar. Is not just a liar. He's the reason the animals remain blind to their suffering. Boxer. Boxer is a strong, hard-working horse who is deeply loyal to the revolution and to Napoleon. His favorite sayings are "I will work harder," and "Napoleon is always right," which show his blind trust and commitment. He wakes up early and works harder than anyone else, believing his efforts will help the farm succeed. Even as a condition worsens, Boxer never complains and continues to believe in the leadership. His strength becomes the foundation of animal farms, economic, economy, economy, economic, economy, and success. Boxer symbolizes the working class in the Soviet Union, the proletariat who carried the weight of their country on their backs. These workers believed in the promise of communism and gave everything to build the new society. under Stalin. Under Stalin, however, they were exploited, overworked, and given little in return. Despite their sacrifice, they were treated undisposable, just as a boxer is sent to glue factory once he becomes weak. Orwell used boxers to expose how totalitarian regimes abuse their most loyal followers. Through Boxer's fate, Orwell sends a powerful message about loyalty, ignorance, and betrayal. Boxer is a tragic hero because he is honest and a good herder, but he lacks education and critical thinking. His faith in Napoleon blinds him to the truth and leads to his downfall. Orwell showed that hard work alone cannot protect people from oppression if they don't also question and resist injustice. Boxer's history is a warning about how easily good people can be used and discarded by corrupt leaders. Molly. Molly is a vain, shallow horse who enjoys sugar cubes, ribbons, and attention from humans. She dislikes working and is more interested in the personal interperson comfort than in the goals of the revolution. When things get difficult of Animal Farm, she escapes to another farm where she can live in luxury. Molly does not care about equality or justice. She only wants to live well. Her actions show that not everyone supports revolutionary change, especially when it means losing privilege. Molly represents the Russian aristocracy and upper class who fled the country after who left who left the, fled the country after Bolshevik Revolution. These individuals were used to wealth, servants, and fine lifestyles, and they reject the idea of equality with the working class. Many escaped to other countries when their wealth and status were threatened. Molly's desire for sugar and ribbons reflects the upper class attachment to luxury and status symbols. Orwell used her to show how some people will abandon their country if they confront is as a wreck. Molly's story reveals how personal interest can be conflict with social justice and progress, while the other animals suffer, find, and fight for freedom. Molly simply lives to protect her own lifestyles. Orwell suggests that revolution can be weakened by those who refuse to sacrifice for the greater good. Her character is not evil, but she is selfish and different and indifferent. Molly stands a reminder that not everyone shares the same vision of equality and that privilege often leads to apathy. Moses. Moses. Moses is a tame raven who tells the animals stories about sugar candies, mountain a paradise where the animals go when they die. He is not very active on the farm and does not help with any of the work. Most of the animals are skeptical of him, but he offers hope and comfort during difficult times. After disappearing for a while, Moises returns and is allowed to stay, even though he does not contribute. His role is to calm the animals and distract them from their suffering. Moses represents the Russian Orthodox Church, which promised hope and salvation to the Russian people. Before the revolution, Church supported the Tsar and encouraged obedience. After the Bolsheviks took over, religion was suppressed, but Stalin later allowed it to return for political reasons. Like Moses, the church was used to keep people passive by focusing their attention on the afterlife rather than the hardships of daily life. Orwell used Moses to show how religion can be used as a tool of control. Through the Moses, through Moses, Orwell explores the relationship between religion and political power. He does not criticizes fate itself, but shows how leaders can be manipulated belief to maintain their rule. Monsters is not harmful, but his stories keep the animals from demanding real change. Orwell suggests that offering false hope can be used as dangerous as an outright oppression. The return of Moses shows how even dictators will use religion if it helps them stay in control. The dogs. The dogs are taken by Napoleon as a puppies and raised in isolation, away from the other animals. When they return, they are fierce and loyal only to him, serving as his personal bodyguards. They attack and kill any animal who disobeys or speaks against Napoleon. The dogs are used to instill fear and enforce obedience on the farm. Their presence make it impossible for the animal to resist Napoleon's rules. The dogs represent Stalin's secret police of the NKVD, who carried out arrests, executions, and purges. These police forces were used to eliminate enemies and spread fear through the Soviet Union. Stalin trained them to be absolutely loyal, just as a Napoleon trained to. Orwell makes it clear that physical violence and terror are essential tools of the dictatorship. Without the dogs, Napoleon would not have been able to keep power. Orwell used the dogs to show how fear can replace justice and destroy freedom. The animals are too terrified to speak up or question anything, even when they know something is wrong. The dogs create an environment when the truth does not matter. Only survival does. This shows how totalitarian regimes use the force to silence dissent and protect those in power. Orwell warns that when violence becomes law, freedom disappears. Benjamin. Benjamin is a cynical donkey who rarely speaks and never seems impressed by the events on the farm. He believes that nothing ever really changed, and he keeps in his thoughts to himself for most of his history. Even though he is intelligent and aware of what is happening, he refuses to take harsh action or get involved. His loyalty is the only shown through his quiet friendship with Boxer, and he becomes deeply upset when Boxer is taken away. However, by the time he speaks out, it is already too late to make a difference. Benjamin represents the skeptical intellectuals or older generation during the Russian Revolution who observed the change with Bob. Many of these individuals saw the flaws in both the old system and the new communist regime. They were often educated and understood the dangers of totalitarianism but chose to remain silent of fear of hopelessness. Just like Benjamin, they believed that involvement would not stop the inevitable. Orwell portrays them as a wise but ultimately passive in the face of injustice. Through Benjamin's inaction, Orwell secretes those who recognize tyranny but fail to resist it. While Benjamin might seem realistic, his refusal to act contributed to the oppression of others. He waits too long to stand up, showing that silence in times of crisis is a form of complicity. Orwell used Benjamin to remind readers that knowledge without courage is not enough to protect freedom. In a corrupt system, watching and doing nothing only helps the oppressors. Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones is the original owner of Manor Farm and represents the old power that the animals overthrew. He is irresponsible
and neglectful of drinking and ignoring the animals' needs. His carelessness leads to rebellion when the animals finally rise up against his rule. After he is driven off the farm, he tries and fails to take it back. His character disappears, but his memory is used to justify Napoleon's action later on. Mr. Jones symbolizes Caesar Nicholas II, the last emperor of Russia, who was overthrown during the Russian Revolution. Like Mr. Jones, the Caesar was viewed as an effective ruler who failed to meet the needs of his people. His poor leadership and decision during World War One helped during his downfall. Once removed from power, the new Soviet regime uses his image as a symbol of the past to scare people into submission. Orwell used Mr. Jones to show how revolution can be begun with just causes but still lead towards outcomes. So Mr. Jones, Orwell shows how corrupt or weak leadership can be raised to revolution. The animals rebel because they suffer and under his rule, just like the Russian people rebelled against the monarchy. However, replacing a bad leader does not guarantee freedom. If the new leader becomes used as oppressive, Mr. John is a reminder that revolution often begins with real problems, but they don't always lead to the better results. Orwell highlights the danger of focusing too much on a past enemies instead of watching current ones. Mr. Picklington is the easygoing power of owner Foxhood, an animal farm. He is relaxed, polite, and seems understood in interfering with Animal Farm at first. He represents a more passive form of leadership and is often contrasted with the harsher Mr. Frederick. Mr. Frederick eventually he befriends Napoleon and primes the way he runs Animal Farm. The relationship ends with a toast and a card game, suggesting growing closeness between them. Mr. Pilkington symbolized the Western allies, particularly Britain and the United States, who were initially suspicious of the Soviet Union. Over time, however, these nations formed temporary alliances with Stalin for political convenience, especially during World War II. Like Mr. Princeton, these countries cicatrized the Soviet regime but later tolerated or even praised it when it served their interests. Orwell shows how politics can be led to strange and morally questionable partnerships. The souls at the end of the story reflects how former enemies can unite for power. So Mr. Pickerington Orwell warns about the hypocrisy and opportunism of international political. Pickerington represents those who are willing to ignore justice for the sake of peace or profit. His friendship with Napoleon shows that the world often turns a blind eye to tyranny if it's politically useful. Orwell cicatrizes this kind of diplomacy, suggesting that such alliances betray the very values they come to take claim to support. Picklington characters shows that the external leaders are often no better than the dictators they shake hands with. Mr. Frederick. Mr. Frederick is the tall and aggressive owner of Pinchfield, another neighboring farm. He is known for being untrustworthy and cruel, often mistreating his animals. At first Napoleon is a cause of Frederick, but eventually he decides to sell him timber. Frederick pays with fake money and then attacks Animal Farm, blowing up the windmill and killing several animals. His betrayal leaves the farm in ruins and shows the consequence of misplaced trust. Mr. Frederick represents Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany, especially during the time of the Nazi-Soviet pact. Stalin Nazi Soviet Pact. Stalin signed a non-aggression treaty with Hitler in 1939, just as Napoleon makes a deal with Frederick. However, Hitler broke the pact by invading the Soviet Union in 1941, just like Frederick attacked Animal Farm. Orwell used this betrayal to highlight the dangers of trusting ruthless leaders. The explosion of windmill parallels the extrusion caused by war. So Mr. Frederick Orwell reveals the destructive power of fascism at the cost of a bad diplomacy. Napoleon's decision to trust Frederick shows his own greed and foolishness. Orwell used this moment to criticize how totalitarian state, whether communist or fascist, will betray one another when it suits their needs. Frederick's actions show that brutality is never far away in the world of corrupt politics. His character is a warning about trusting dictators who only serve their own power. Mr. Wimper. Mr. Wimper is a human solicitor hired by an Napoleon to represent Animal Farm in the outside world. He acts as a middleman, arranging trade deals and helping the pigs appear legitimate to outsiders. Wimper never questions the farm's internal politics and focuses only on his business interests. His visits to the farm are brief and superficial, and he is easily fooled by the pig's lies. He helps the animals trade with the outside world while ignoring their suffering. Mr. Wimper symbolizes Western business and capitalists who engaged in trade with the Soviet Union despite the repressive regime. These individuals often turned a blind eye to human rights abuses because they profited from economic relations. Like Wimper, they were willing to deal with a totalitarian state as long as benefit them financially. Orwell cicatrices this willingness to ignore morality for the sake of business. Wimper's characters show how outsiders can support dictatorship indirectly. Orwell used Mr. Wimper to expose the moral compromise people make for money and convenience. He is not directly evil, but he enables the peace by helping them appear legitimate. This allowed Napoleon to maintain power without accountability. Wimper shows how those on the outside often play role in sustaining oppression. Orwell warns that silence and cooperation from outsiders can make tyranny even stronger. Was my video and I hope you like it.